Zweig Group invites all AEC industry leaders to the 2024 AEC Small Business and Entrepreneurship Forum, the premier event for small firms in the AEC sector. Experience innovative strategies and insights on May 21st, crafted by Zweig Group's industry experts. Engage in keynotes and interactive sessions focused on recruitment, retention, and business growth. Join Zweig Group for this unique networking opportunity and take your business to new heights. Secure your spot today and be part of the AEC industry's future. Visit zweiggroup.com for more information. The Zweig Group team looks forward to welcoming you. Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm excited today because I'm sitting here with a friend of mine who I haven't seen in ages, and it's obviously due to the COVID-19 and the coronavirus pandemic, but that friend is Chad Clinehens, who is the CEO and president of Zweig Group, and Chad and I have finally gotten a chance to just sit down and catch up and talk, and we were sharing some stories, and there's a lot of things going on right now. But without further ado, Chad Clinehens, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Randy. And the phrase "great to see you" has new meaning now, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. So
as we sit here in an empty building,
oh my gosh, I mean, like literally, there's nobody in this building. So right. And you guys have actually moved recently. I mean, there's been a lot of changes, which I think is the nature of the industry. It's the nature of the nation right now is a state of change and metamorphosis. I would love for you just to kind of give the listeners, because we have a lot of listeners. Since we brought the podcast back, the listenership has grown dramatically. And even though we only come out twice a month, what I have noticed is the spike of listeners has just gone through the roof, which is a great thing. But I would love for you just to kind of share with the listeners what's been going on here with Zweig Group, and then also what's been going on in the industry, because you guys are still working, right? I mean, this pandemic has not really slowed that down. You may not be on a plane as much as you used to be, but you're still working.
That's right.
So I'd love for you just to kind of share with our audience what's happening.
Great. First of all, I'm just going to say I'm going to do my best to avoid all buzzwords. So if I use the word pivot,
pivot is actually a good word to use. I think that's one of the few buzzwords outside of strategery that we will allow on this podcast.
It's what other word do we use? I mean, it's certainly a significant change in our lives, both personally and professionally. And I certainly. You go back to March and that time period where we were actually just finishing our in-person Principals Academy, which you're quite familiar with.
Sure.
And we were in Dallas. And I was expecting the audience to really want to talk a lot about COVID because it was that week that really the government hit the red button. But they didn't. They really wanted to focus on the fundamentals. But also, I think that when we all got back, after that third week of March, we realized major change ahead.
Yeah.
But also, I think the perspective was real short term. Our next event was a CEO roundtable the first week of April, and we were holding out thinking, well, maybe this thing will blow over in a few weeks.
Right.
And then it didn't. And then we were looking at events in March and June and so forth. And finally, we realized we're going to have to convert our stuff virtually and quickly.
Yeah.
And we did. And one of the things we've been really intentional about at Zweig Group is not looking at things as like it's plan B. Mm-hmm. Well, because we can't meet in person, we're going to do the second best thing, which is virtual. We've actually had really great feedback with the virtual meetings. We realize it will be a part of our permanent business forever. We still crave the in-person and returning back to that. And just like this meeting and how good it feels to actually sit across the table
from a live person.
Yes, from a friend. And so certainly we look forward to that. But, business now, after a couple of months of figuring things out, we're really happy with the way we've converted these things. And we're looking forward to ElevateAEC and doing something that we couldn't have done in the in-person. So again, instead of saying, well, because we can't meet in Denver and there's a lot of clients who really are going to miss that. This isn't a plan B. This isn't, well, let's just prepackage it as a virtual option. It's let's do something we couldn't have done in person.
Right. Yeah. And I think that is the, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think all of us have, come to a place where we've said, if we were going to do it differently, if we were going to blow this whole thing up and start over again, what would it look like? And I think Zweig Group is any different than any other large company that's growing and trying to figure out how to, and I'll use it one more time, pivot in the current state of affairs. And I think some people are going to figure it out and some people are not. And you guys seem to be doing that. I was really amazed at how quickly you were able to spin up a number of different programs that had traditionally been live and now were being online. And I like the way that you've kind of broken things up and are delivering this material and this information to people in a kind of a much broader context, because you're able to kind of control the medium and control how you deliver that information. And it seems to be well received. Would you say so yourself as far as the feedback that you've received so far? Yeah.
And I have to confess that I was a bit surprised, even though we were being very positive and taking something like our flagship training program, Principals Academy, and just the rich experience of the in-person and the happy hour after the first day and the relationships that are formed. I was skeptical of a virtual platform, but we got great feedback. And so I was pleasantly surprised. And I mean, there are limitations, of course, but we figured out how to drive the conversation, get people engaged, run polls, do different things that, keep people engaged in the training. And also it's interesting taking something like that, which was 12 credit hours over a day and a half, and spreading it over 6 weeks in 2-hour time blocks. And the fact that people don't have to get on planes, they don't have to, stay in a hotel, and that kind of disruption that creates. It's just a different experience. So there's trade-offs.
Yeah, it is. And, if as I think back to my time at Zweig Group, and I can remember saying, like, after every Principals Academy, man, we got to put this on video. We have to put this on video.
Here we go.
Yeah. now you don't have a choice. I mean, and that actually forces you, I think, when you memorialize it that way, because it's one thing to go in person, and you're right. I'm the same way. I love there's something about being in front of a live audience. But when you are memorializing content and putting something together that you want to have staying power, you kind of look at it differently. And so it's no longer this, moment in time that's captured so beautifully in a live program, but it's now something that you have access to for forever. And it's like, wow, what do we do? And so I think, if nothing else, what you'll probably find is that you guys will be able to continue to perfect the Principals Academy, project management, all of the leadership trainings, all of the trainings that Zweig Group does will only get better because of the way that you're capturing them.
Yeah. And I think probably a major part of the positive feedback is, let's face it, people are craving interaction with others. Yeah. And there's not the natural going to conferences, seeing other people. And so the sharing of ideas is constrained by the constraint on in person. Mm. So the forum of, even if it's virtual Zoom, where, people can see each other, they can ask questions, they can hear what other firms are doing, that is powerful right now, because a lot of the things that we relied on aren't happening, like the conferences and the monthly professional organization meetings and other places where people got that naturally. We now realize how much we appreciated that.
Absolutely. And word on the street is that it's going to be a minute before that comes back. I think that's just the reality of it. Because even if some of us are ready to get back to things, doesn't mean that everybody's ready to get back to things. And certainly people vote with their dollars. So how they spend their money, the way they do what they determine is necessary and what isn't, that's going to inform how any company, Zweig Group included, presents their products and services. So, and speaking of services, I would love for you, before we get in, because I do want to spend some time talking about Elevate, because it's going to be much different than anything that we've ever experienced in the past when it was hot firm. And then, as you metamorphosized into Elevate, I'd love to kind of talk about the fact that you guys are as busy as ever.
Mm-hmm.
mean, you're consulting. I mean, you told me about a marathon call that you were on last week, and I was like, man, that was serious stuff. And so I guess the industry is still busy.
It is. And, in April, there was a lot of, hey, let's wait from clients. Let's hit the pause button on the strategic plan or the recruiting or whatever it was, on various areas that we work in. And we realized when we got into May, hey, we really need to encourage these clients to think about, this is a perfect time actually to work on your business, right?
Yeah.
This is not about hitting the pause button and then when we unpause this, that everything's back to normal. It's not.
Yeah.
So now's the perfect time to really think ahead and be proactive versus just reactive. Because to your point, it's going to be a minute. And so one of what quotes from, and I'll just quote a leader in the AEC industry that we lost several weeks ago, Calvin Ladner, CEO of LJA, due to complications of COVID. Calvin was a titan in the industry, meant a lot to our company, meant a lot to his company, his family, and the industry has had a major loss. And I think it's a sobering reminder of really just the gravity of the situation. But one of his quotes was, look beyond the bunker.
Yeah.
And I think that's a perfect quote right now for us all as leaders in this industry and thinking about our businesses and how we deal with things going forward. Because the variability, I think there's still a lot of variability ahead in how we're going to have to deal with employees and flexibility and their lifestyles and making sure that, it was real shakeup in our lives, and it was kind of like a house of cards of a system that we relied on that was so convenient, schools and restaurants and takeout and all that stuff that now it's like we can't meet this, schools are so many different versions of how kids are learning and the demands on parents.
Yeah.
We are in we're wearing a lot of different hats and in a lot of different situations now. And I think we've really got to be empathetic to that as leaders.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And as I'm kind of playing back in my head, the previous guests that we've had on, everybody's had a different story to tell about the things that they're really focusing on right now. We had Greg Graves, who was the former CEO and president of Burns & McDonnell, a very large design firm, talking about this is the best time to really double down on leadership development and training everyone, right? Because I think it's the idea that the next man or next woman up has to be thinking from a leadership mindset. It's not just the people in the corner office. It's everybody. It's all of us. And I'm sure you're doing that the same way here with the staff at Zweig Group. It's not just you. If it was just you or Jamie Claire or Mark or somebody like that, that would be fine. But the reality is that everybody's got to kind of step up and step into that void and start to exercise some leadership as far as that's concerned. And I think firms are giving people more latitude to do that now than ever before.
That is an excellent point, because if you think about, we don't have the convenience now, or a lot of leaders don't have the convenience of just walking down the hall and being able to cover 8 to 10 people with just one walk. Yeah. And so we really do have to rely on others in the organization to keep these connections going, making the phone calls and having the random lunches, which is one of the things our team is doing, and with just gathering groups of people and having a random lunch or a happy hour. Those things are important to fit into the schedule, because again, we just don't have the convenience of daily interaction that can happen like so quickly in person that now requires you to pick up the phone or get on a Zoom call. And we realize there's fatigue there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I spend my days on Zoom, and I guess that's one of the reasons why their stock prices shot through the roof. So
it's a good investment.
It is a good investment for sure. So why don't you, I would love for you just to kind of share with the audience, some of the aha moments that you have realized over the past few months as you have dealt with clients and maybe in a different way than you have in the past. And what are some of the things that you're gleaning from your interactivity with a lot of different design firms in terms of what they're seeing, the responses that you're getting back from different leaders? I find that everybody tends to be very bullish about where the market is from a design firm perspective. We already knew that our infrastructure, the public space, public sector, our infrastructure is in some ways crumbling, and you need engineers and you need architects to kind of resuscitate a lot of that. So I'm just curious to know what you're hearing and kind of like, what is the word on the street from the different ones that you you have provided counsel to and have provided you with some feedback.
It's a weird time right now because I'm working with a number of firms who are having record years, like all-time records. And those maybe were already in place. Certainly, I think they're pinching themselves going, wow, in April, we really thought this was it. And a lot of firms quickly reacted at the pay of leadership or whatever, just as a proactive measure. And then, now here we are in September and they've got now, 3 quarters that are like, whoa, first 3 quarters are really great.
Yeah.
But there's this, what does the fourth quarter look like? What does the first quarter look like next year? So it's a weird time, and not every firm's doing well. Obviously, there are firms who they are in markets that were more reactive, to COVID, and whether it's retail or restaurant or whatever. I think that there's a lot of firms experiencing things differently, but there's a lot of good news.
Yeah,
but sometimes this industry's slow to react.
Right.
Right. So. That's the one thing that really it's hard to dole out advice right now. And really, as a company who, where we are, thought leadership is our thing, we're doing our best to focus on the fundamentals that we know are timeless while talking about the things that are different and sharing of ideas of things you can do now and tomorrow. And, one of the things that's on our mind right now is the award winners as we approach ElevateAEC. And it's interesting as we're looking at this data and we're realizing, well, almost all of this data and the awards we're celebrating right now really looks at performance and data and feedback pre-COVID. Now, the best firms to work for was obviously open during COVID. And so we actually got to see that data trend significantly.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it does beg the question, what does an award-winning firm look like in 2021?
Sure.
Looking at 2020. And, I said this in my recent TZL article, I think it's going to be made up of heroes at home as well as heroes at work. And we have to think about that. It's not just what we can measure in numbers and measure in what we see in the office, because those data points are going to be a lot less obviously prevalent in 2020.
Yeah.
So that's really, really on our mind is what does great performance look like going forward? What does award winning look like, in all of the different areas? So that's something that's evolving for us.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you brought up the Elevate Award program, and it's kind of like the Oscars for the design industry, right? If I could borrow that expression, but it's going to be so different because I know I would always look forward to gathering with all these people, in a confined space for a couple of days to celebrate the achievement of all of these design firms that have done great things. So how are you going to capture that in online format to the best of your ability? What are you guys working on to bring to everyone? Because of course, this episode will come out prior to it. And if people are listening to it after the Elevate conference has ended, I certainly encourage you to go back to the Zweig Group website to sign up and get that, because I'm sure something will be available for download post-conference as well. But what are you guys going to do differently with the way that this new format that you've come up with?
Well, I'll start out by just saying how difficult this has been figuring that out, honestly. As you know, what was previously Hot Firm, which became ElevateAEC to match our Elevate the Industry mission 2 years ago, it really grew into a large event, lots of energy, lots of excitement. And so as we were going through this summer, and all the organizations were clinging on to the hope that in the fall you could do an in-person event.
Sure.
And finally, in July, we realized it just wasn't going to be possible with the hotel and the restrictions that were in place in Colorado. So then we said, we got to be all in on something. We can't hold on to the hope that in-person's going to happen. So we went all in on virtual. So we did challenge ourselves to come up with something that wouldn't have been possible in person. And what we hear from previous conferences, we love it. We wish it could last longer, right?
Right.
But it's exhausting. I can assure you, especially on the Zweig Group staff side. Just that day and a half or 2 days, what it became in the last 2 years was exhausting. So what we said is, let's take what we heard, which was we want more leadership training. We want more thought leadership training. Some of the great things that Zweig Group does, like Principals Academy, it'd be great to have elements of that. We just are not able. We don't have the resources, the staff dedicated to do that in an in-person. So now we created this 8-week experience where it's instead of, just taking ElevateAEC and putting it online the same 2 days and, asking people to go through a marathon Zoom call like the one I went through the other day.
Yeah.
My experience doesn't work.
Right.
It's not good for people. So we have this 8-week experience that now has, it would, if you put it all together, it would have been a week or 2 long conference. Yeah. Every single seminar we teach throughout the year is all going to be offered in the 8 weeks. CEO roundtables, other topic-based roundtables. We're going to poll attendees, we're going to build cohorts. So we're going to do our best to really create the networking that, did happen obviously organically in the in-person and figure out how to replicate that in a virtual environment as best we can. We know there's limitations. We're going to break that down, and we're going to really do something that allows people to engage in this event, but without having to give half or their entire day. So just 2 to 3 hours a day, and there's content programmed throughout the entire 8 weeks, including our Elevate Her Symposium, which is very important, as that was going to be our inaugural kickoff, and the cohorts were going to present their theses to the industry. Yep. And that is something that we're very excited about. We've got a great lineup of keynote speakers, and attendees can get up to like 50 continuing education credits if they really want to. That was one
of my questions to find out, because you could get like a year or two's worth of CEUs participating in this event. So
yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and I'm glad you brought up Elevate Her, because that allows us to talk a little bit about some of the changes that have been taking place in this environment as a nation, but also in this industry when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. You had 2 cohorts with Elevate Her, or 1?
We had 2 different kickoffs.
But that was all
they're
one
split,
cohort.
but it's a total of 5 cohorts. So they formed into 5 groups, all picking a topic, and I'm very excited about it. And so they will present the first 5 weeks on Wednesdays. And one thing I think is important to note is that we are taking everything that was going to be in the in-person Elevate conference in Denver, and that's all free.
Okay.
We're making it free because we want people to be a part of this. Mm-hmm. We want them to hear and to be engaged in the Elevate Her part of it, that we want them to hear the thought leadership that was going to be programmed in that event. We recognize we don't have the hotel cost, and so we're doing our part to make that available. Now, the premium side, which is all of the seminars and the roundtables and the premium content, that does come with a charge. We're also encouraging, if a company wants to train together, they can have an enterprise license that everybody in the company can access unlimited, all of the content in 8 weeks.
Wow.
But that part of it that's the part of our business where that keeps us going, right? Yeah. That keeps us going during COVID. And so we're excited about that premium offering that's right now early bird at $9.99. It's an unbelievable deal. I mean, from previous seminars that we've taught, and
Principals Academy has never been $9.99. So.
No, it is not. Yes. It's because you've got 4, 5, 6 instructors dedicating their time to it. It's a major commitment. But we're very excited because there's something for everyone in this 8-week experience. And there's a significant part that is free, and a very important part. The part that's premium is extraordinary and will be great for the people who want to really take that journey of personal and professional growth with us over that 8 weeks. It concludes right before Thanksgiving. And then, we can hopefully take all that content in December and just refresh ourselves and say, how are we going to tackle 2021 with vigor?
Yeah.
Regardless of what it's going to dole out to us.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, at least you'll be ready for what's going to come down the pike.
That's right.
And if nothing else, I think the other valuable piece of Elevate at the Elevate conference is just being able to connect with other like-minded people. And that's the thing that I've always enjoyed seeing, is like a firm leader over here connecting with a firm leader over there. And then all of a sudden, the next year you see them collaborating on a project or doing some work. I mean, that happens all the time. That's another reason why people need to participate in this. If they've never done it before, they definitely needed to sign up this year because it allows them an entree into a group of folks, especially the folks that the lifers, as I call them, the people that come every year. I mean, these people are successful for a reason.
Right.
I mean, every company that I have seen that's been up on that award stage over the years, they just continue to grow. They continue to succeed. They continue to add great employees. They continue to control their retention levels. They continue to iterate and come up with new ways to bring a value to their market. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for people to do that. No firm is an island by itself, and you cannot just sit around and hope that you can just conquer the market on your own. I mean, everybody can do something incredible, but you grow by gleaning ideas off of other people, by hearing other thought leaders share. And like you said, I mean, you brought it up and I saw the list. I mean, you guys are pulling together a list of subject matter experts. I don't think I've seen anything like this list before for any Elevate event or even a hot firm or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've always brought a couple of people in, but it was a couple. Right. You guys have a gang of folks.
Right.
It's just, so I was really impressed by that. I saw some names. I was like, wait, how did they get her? And I'm like, and I'm just thinking people I know, I'm like, man, okay, this is going to be good. I can't wait. So
it's incredible. You're right. It's like, what can we do in 8 weeks is different than what can we do in a day and a half.
Yeah.
And we are so excited and so fortunate that the people who have committed to, especially these keynote speaking slots that happen on Wednesdays, that they are giving us their time, but they're also sharing extraordinary stories, and it just ties into the entire mission of Elevate the Industry. And that's the thing I think that's so important about this event. You know this. It's evolved into an event with a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just an award celebration, which is, it was largely based around that. And in the latter years, it has evolved. And the 3 pillars, which are networking, learn, and celebrate, we have really worked to make sure all 3 of those pillars are well represented. So the networking happens in all of the sessions, whether it's the Principals Academy, and that we may have 50, 60, 70 firms on there. There's going to be a lot of sharing of ideas. But there'll be small groups like the CEO cohorts and roundtables that'll be smaller. So there's really going to be something for everyone. I will say about the celebrate aspect, that is really one of the most challenging, actually. So even the networking and learning are something that we know we've covered in this 8 weeks. The celebration, absent of a party where there's smoke machines and lights and loud music and people are enjoying great food and drink and getting their pictures taken. Without that, how do we celebrate? So what we're doing is we're putting together celebration videos that will do a countdown, and we'll kick off panel discussions with the award winners. So we'll have each of those, I believe it's the Wednesdays in November. We'll have, instead of the keynote speech, it'll actually be award celebration videos with footage straight from firms.
Yeah.
So that's a call right now for everybody on the podcast. Please submit your footage to us, because it'll have, we hope, a very large audience, followed by the award winner panels. We don't have a virtual ceremony this year. And the reason is our team did an exhaustive amount of research this summer on other awards ceremonies that were virtual. And we decided it just can't live up to the bar of what ElevateAEC has become. You called it the Oscars.
Yeah.
How can we keep people's attention for 2 or 3 hours? I've watched award ceremonies where, acceptance speeches were on mute. There were, feed problems, internet glitches, all kinds of stuff. And we don't want to do that to the award winners. So we really want to honor them through a video that they can also share. Mm-hmm. And then we want to talk about what makes these award winners so great, so important, and have thought leaders in a panel discussion format. And then the award winners will be honored throughout the other events, like, Principals Academy. We talk about the award winners and their data and what they're doing, and we show examples. And so it's just going to be a different way of celebrating this year. But make no mistake, all 3 of those pillars are still a major focus, and we're going to do it with big, great style this year.
That's awesome.
In the virtual environment.
Well, yeah. And obviously you don't have hotel bills to spend money on. So you can definitely spend on production and put a quality product together that people will would really be inviting. And I think the other thing with that is, as I'm listening to you say that, I have just a ton of ideas, but I think it's important for people to recognize that, again, you get the benefit of all this in the comfort of your home, your garage, your office space, your workplace where nobody else is, wherever you are, you can take advantage of this training and do it in the comfort of your own space. So,
that's the trade-offs. And I think that we have to look at the things that are positive and empowering about this time. And that's what will carry forward post-COVID. Because there's a post-COVID and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
But there are good things right now that we're learning and we are evolving as an industry. This industry really struggled overall with the work from home, that whole policy and way of life. In other industries, of course, were ahead of us there. Well, it's forced us into it. And so how we take that going forward and how we work longer term and workplace flexibility and worker flexibility is something that, it forced kind of a rapid evolution.
Yeah.
But there's a part of this we're going to take and it'll make us better as an industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, man, I really wanted to, there was something else I wanted to kind of talk about, but as I'm sitting here listening to you share, I think what's really appropriate is that we find a way to bring back this conversation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I want to do it on a different podcast because I think I have so many questions about that because I know that with everything going on in the country and then just all the conversation that I've been a part of this summer, we've had several guests, James Garrett from up in St. Paul, Minnesota, African-American architect, outstanding award-winning architect. I had a lot to share about his experience growing up as a Black architect in a space that largely doesn't either celebrate or acknowledge, a lot of Black architects. And so I have had a chance this summer to spend time with a lot of young architects and a lot of young engineers who basically feel like there is no space for them to be heard. And what I'm slowly seeing happen is that there is an evolution where that space is being created. And on another episode, I want to sit down with you and maybe if we can corral Jamie Claire Kaiser for 5 minutes because she's still moving around at 90 miles an hour.
She is.
So Jamie, wherever you are, make sure you have your mask on. Make sure you have your Sandy wipes with you and some sanitizer, and please be safe because I know that even COVID-19 is not going to slow you down. But I say all that to say that I really do want to have an even greater discussion in this area of diversity, equity, and inclusion because I believe that this industry is not going to succeed without making sure that they can bring as many people to the table as possible. You just the numbers won't support it.
That's right.
And that's just the reality of where we are. So one of my goals is to help every firm leader, that's white or anything else, to know all of the historically Black colleges and universities that have great engineering programs. Like, of course, my alma mater, Howard University, but then there's North Carolina A&T and so many others. That it just needs to be second nature to firm leaders because they need to know where they can go to find some of these diverse folks that they can bring onto their team. And so that's a whole nother conversation. And I don't want to add on to what we're already talking about here, but I do want to tease it so people know that it is on the radar screen. We are doing it. Zweig Group has spent a lot of time on this. That's why they created ElevateAEC to begin with.
That's right.
And so we certainly wanted to do that. And you guys were kind of ahead of the curve as far as that's concerned. And I applaud you. And I look forward to hearing. And if nothing else, I would encourage everybody to participate in those ElevateAEC cohort research responses where you get the information on their findings, because I saw the people that participated in it, and there's some sharp people in there. Really sharp folks. It
is just an extraordinary group of a diverse group of individuals who have come together to advance this. And one thing that's very important about this, Randy, is the ElevateAEC program founded by Jamie Claire Kaiser it's beyond gender equity. It's about racism and inclusion and all forms that help us elevate the industry, right? Yeah. And that, to me, is what has really generated the interest in just the level of keynote speakers that we have, because this is not just another conference. It's an event to elevate the industry.
Sure.
And so ElevateAEC it's such a powerful part of that, because the pillars of the mission, which is to promote, celebrate, educate, change, and diversity, all of those pillars are so critical in helping this industry be competitive, because we have to compete now with other industries.
Absolutely.
For talent.
Yeah. Because other industries have...
It's a war.
It is a war. And other industries have figured it out. And they're doing all that they can do now to connect and tap into certain marketplaces to attract the best and brightest talent, regardless of where they're coming from. And I think the other thing that's interesting, and I don't know if you saw this, but Google is announcing their own certification program for education. So, and they're no longer requiring a bachelor's. So, I mean, the stakes are so much higher, right? Because now it's going to be like, should I go with LJA or maybe this offer that I got over here from Google or, there's all kinds of things.
That's right.
And if there's one thing that I've learned in being in this industry is that most of the people that we deal with are really smart people. And there are people that I think would be successful in any vertical market, but we want to try to keep them within the design industry fold for as long as possible. And I think that requires firm leadership to be thinking differently about how they engage this young talent and how they bring them on and how they grow them.
Right.
And it's got to happen. If we ignore it, it will be to the detriment of this industry long term.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah. So, well, I don't want to be Debbie Downer, so that's I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's just something that design leadership should be thinking about. Design firm leadership. It's something that should be on the tip of their minds when they're coming together and having conversations about this. So I really want to encourage you guys to continue to bring that up. And something else that reminds me, and this will bring us right back around to the Elevate program. I saw a quote the other day, and I think Mark was talking about the lack of spending. And I think it was like less than 0.5% of a design firm's revenue is spent on professional development for their people. And I think that you could solve all those problems by coming to the Elevate conference virtually. And I think you should figure out a way, and I'm sure Chad will work something out if you want to bring your whole firm, because this is an opportunity for you to do that. And you're not sitting there wondering how much is it going to cost through Delta or how much is Holiday Inn going to cost or, all these other exorbitant costs this is making it an easy no-brainer.
Yeah, really
we need to be developing our people at every turn. And so whether you're doing it internally, you need to also do it externally as well to kind of bring the two together so that you have a much more well-rounded employee. And I think that the Elevate conference could be a great way to start. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And that argument is there's never a better time to do it because training and development is now the number one ranked benefit in the industry. It's a beautiful thing. Our people want what actually benefits the firm, which is their own development.
Yeah.
Benefits the company, benefits the clients. And so that investment, it's just a beautiful thing. If it were something else, but something like that's number one, it's a great time to invest in your people for sure.
Absolutely. And I don't think anybody wants to stay the same. I think when they come and join a company, they're joining a company with the idea that they're going to grow with that company. And the only way they can do that is if that company invests in them.
That's right.
Period. I mean, it's just it. So. Well, I mean, I know that Elevate has its own website.
It is on the Zweig Group website, yes. And
so they can just go to zweiggroup.com.
Zweiggroup.com.
Yep.
It's got several places you can click on it, but top line navigation, just AEC virtual conference and symposium.
Yeah. And you can also Google the Elevate conference and it should show up as well. Because I think I've Googled it and it's up there. So there's quite a bit of information.
So the page itself has information and it has tabs. If you scroll down and you can see what's in the free program, you can see what's in the premium program. And then of course you can click to register if you want group discounts or an enterprise license. You just call us. Olivia Thomas is managing that for us and doing a great job. We're very excited about that potential.
Absolutely.
There's no potential here. There's no limits here. right?
No, exactly.
We're not limited to a ballroom that only fits 400 people.
Right. So, and I guess if that's the case, when we look at the final numbers of this, and we'll have to do a follow up, but you guys will probably break your record for the number of people and number of participants, which I think will set something else up, right? Where you're like, oh my God, now we had 3,000 people come, that's going to be a big deal, which would be like 10x what you've ever experienced. So I think that would be huge.
Well, there's power in numbers and for us to gather and talk about the things we're going to talk about and how to elevate the industry, that to me would be so exciting. And that's why, there's a portion of it that's free. And because we want people to feel free to come and participate and engage, be a part of the conversation, and help us take it to the world, because that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
This is how it starts.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, listen, every industry is doing this right now. I have a friend that just put on a conference for, teaching people how to teach online. And they're charging a very small amount, but they are expecting like 60,000 participants from around the world.
Wow.
Which is huge.
Yes.
And so you don't need, you don't have the hotel, you don't have all the other residual expenses that come along with it. And even some of the people that are participating are doing it just on GP because they want to share. So that's the other thing. So, this is great. I'm excited. I'm fired up, and I'm even more excited because I was asked to do a program as well during this time. So it'll give me a chance to share from the perspective of podcasting and how to extend your brand, both externally and internally with a podcast. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. And I have a ton of material. So I hope that all of you come and participate in this and that you'll get some great things out of it. So
I agree. And I'm so glad you're going to be a part of this, because the results speak for themselves just with this podcast.
Yeah.
But it's something you're passionate about. And I'm really excited for our audience to be able to expand their marketing and their branding perspective and understand the reach and the power of a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so that goes without saying. So, well, Chad, thank you so much, man. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I looked down and we're almost like 45 minutes into this conversation. So
we could just keep going.
We could keep going. But we're going to put a pin in it. This is a to be continued, and we will come back and report back. And I think what we'll do is kind of do a culmination episode as well after. So like sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas, we'll do a culmination episode where we'll talk about the findings from the Elevate conference, the feedback that we got, and the big takeaways. And I think what we'll do is we'll wrap it up nice and neatly and give it to folks. So it'll be like our Christmas gift to you, pre-Christmas. So something like that. So we'll do that for sure.
Well, one thing I want to say as we close, and it's really a shout out, because if you know this from previous conferences, there's a group that goes and makes that happen. And what we're doing right now, it's every Zweig Group employee has a role in this. And it's 8 weeks of it's a lot of intensity and demand. And so I just really appreciate all of our team's efforts in coming together and making this happen.
Yeah.
Because never have we had something like this where we actually really, every area of the company is able to tie into this.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited for it. It was scary, but probably still is a little bit.
Right.
But it's something that we truly believe falls in the mission. And it's not just a tagline. It is a movement to elevate the industry.
Absolutely. One organization at a time, or as you like to say, a rising tide lifts all ships.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, good. Well, Chad Clinehens, President and CEO of Zweig Group, thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's hard to get you to come on these podcasts, but I'm glad I got you on here, and I wanted people to hear your voice because so many people have benefit from your wisdom and your knowledge as you go out to the different boardrooms around the country, as you sit on the Zoom calls that you sit on. But I wanted people to hear you here on the podcast. So thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Well, folks, there you have it. Another episode of the Zweig Letter Podcast. I want to encourage you guys to check out our namesake newsletter. The Zweig Letter has been published and has come out for about almost 30 years. I think 92 was when the newsletter originally started. And Mark Zweig has always written an article in that newsletter. And I think it is one of the longest running newsletters for the design industry, or at least I'm making that claim. So if I'm wrong, you'll have to prove it. But the bottom line is we really appreciate it. And one thing that we want to give to all of our listeners is a free subscription to the Zweig Letter. You can just visit zweiggroup.com or go to thezweigletter.com and you can subscribe and get the Zweig Letter newsletter in your inbox and as a PDF every Monday morning. I think it comes out around 12 noon or so, but you don't want to miss it. There's so much great information there. Sarah Sparkman and the rest of the team at Zweig Group have really done an amazing job pulling together some of the best resources for you as a design firm employee, as a design firm leader. You don't want to be without this newsletter on a regular basis. And the best part about it is that it's free. All it requires is an email address and you can go from there. So That's all we have for you today. Listen, I would really appreciate it. You guys are blowing up our statistics by downloading this podcast. Please share it with a friend. If this podcast helps you in any way, shape, or form, let other people know about it. We'd love for you to rate and review the podcast and let us know what you think. And if there's somebody that you'd love to hear on the podcast, reach out to us and let us know as well through those formats. And I can always be reached here at Zweig Group at rwilburn@zweiggroup.com. That's all I have for you this week. I will see you soon. Peace.